Good morning, everyone, and welcome to what I am reliably informed is the 285th episode of Seasoned Gaming's Bitcast, hosted by me, Ainsley Bowden, now with hair and a hat, and with guest appearances from Mekel Kasanova.
Hey, aloha.
Thank you so much for being here, and Tie Guy something in the bottom there. It's Tie Guy person. He wears a tie. That's his deal.
Tie Guy Tyler, I assume. That would be the most fitting.
Tie Guy Tyler sounds like a preppy frat boy, so that's not really what I think of when I think of you, Travis.
I was going for the double use of tie.
Oh, I see. Yes.
Yeah, but it's
I
Tyler.
think the jokes are always funnier when you have to explain them.
Yeah, I thought so. I think.
Well, good morning, everyone. Obviously, I'm not Ainsley Bowden. I am Hogue of Hogue Law, and our wonderful guest here is making sure that you don't have to deal with Hogue and Travis as a show for the Bitcast this week. So we offer him many, many thanks because we know nobody wanted that, including Hogue and Travis.
True.
So,
very true.
Mekel, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and the channel and why you agreed to be here with us this morning?
Hello, everyone. My name is Mekel Kasanova. I'm a Hawaiian content creator, journalist, and podcaster. And big fan of the show. Ains hit me up. He's like, "Hey, you free?" I was like, "What time?" He's like, "It's gonna be 5 o'clock in the morning your time." I'm like, "I don't sleep, so it's always go time." So
5 a.m, Travis. Well, we thank you very much for being here. And where can people find you? What videos, what content are you putting out there?
I put out a lot of video game and tech reviews, a lot of podcasts with the gaming industry and the tech industry. You can catch me across the board on every social media platform as well as on YouTube, youtube.com/Mekel Kasanova, x.com or Twitter. I keep Twitter.com/Mekel Kasanova because it redirects to X. And every other platform. And I try to give a Hawaiian perspective on games, tech, and all that. So yeah, a little voice acting too, but we're getting there.
Thank you. That is wonderful. And as people can tell, you're not Dan, because Dan is traveling, and we are hopeful that he's having a great time with whatever he's doing. We know Ains is not having a great time. He's traveling for family. He's had a family situation that he has to deal with. He's very sorry that he can't be here. He knows that all of you are upset when we take a week off of Bitcast and are more upset when you don't get to see Ains. So he's very sorry about that, but we thought this made the best sense to go on with a show like this, and Ains will be back before you know it. And speaking of being back, Ains is also playing for Extra Life as a special event pretty soon for the Kansas City Children's Miracle Network hospitals. And he says any contributions would be sincerely appreciated. I can only assume he's sincere. That's the text I'm reading here. So he does know that if you go to there and you participate in that Extra Life setup, that you can get a custom jersey with presumably your gamer tag. I assume this is a placeholder and not just gamer tag, although I have to be honest, that's a pretty rad gamer tag if your gamer tag is gamer tag. Either way, you can check that out, and I can put a link in later on, I think, when I get more access to the chat. I'm not as good as at typing while talking as the rest of the people on the Bitcast are. Maybe Travis can throw that in. I put that in the private chat before. But I can show you that screen, I think, with the magic of modern technology. You can see Ainsley right there. He's got the angels and the halo, which unfortunately makes him look a little dead. But he's still alive. He's just traveling
he's just
right
missing
now.
a gold frame. I think that's the last thing you need to.
I know people commented on that when you had me up there in the gold frame.
Yeah.
But you can go and check out this link that I or someone else will be putting in the chat and support him on Extra Life. And to be entirely selfish, although this was not a part of Ains's background for this episode, I did want to point out that I am up for an award that I don't deserve at all, but it's the Stroke Hero Awards from the American Stroke Association in collaboration with the American Heart Association. And you guys have all been fantastic putting votes in. You see, we have more than 4,000 votes right now, but you will also note that the Centro de Neurosciences Menonita Caguas of Puerto Rico has almost as many votes as us. and they are a whole clinic. They've been doing really well with their votes. So if you're interested in voting for me as the stroke hero, or as Travis and Ains said, best stroke of the year, please do consider voting. I would really appreciate it. You can vote once per day. You see the timers going for me here in the bottom through the 20th of March. So a couple more days left in the vote. But I would really appreciate it. I'm not sure I deserve it, but it's always nice to win awards. So thank you much, everybody.
To be clear,
links.
I called them the Strokies. Okay.
You did call
and I said that if you won, it would really stroke your ego. All right. Just to be clear, what happened in that chat.
I don't want to take away your jokes, man.
I have voted for you most days of this week.
You may have been doing better than me, because I would get busy and forget.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I never forget an opportunity to maybe make fun of you for winning a stroke award. Yeah.
You know, it's an honor just to be nominated. And I don't recommend going through the process of having the stroke to get nominated. But I appreciate everybody's support, and thank you. And that'll do it for our medical related advertisements in this episode. So thank you, everybody.
Are you sure?
I'm not
we have no other.
One thing I did want to mention here.
I want to talk about
really
catheters for a little bit.
To really put the seasoned in seasoned gaming, I did want to mention that if you hear like a grunt or a shriek from me, it's because I threw out my back yesterday. And nice. I'm really feeling old here with my stroke references and my thrown out back. But I'm going to do my best here on the Seasoned Gaming Bitcast to really add that seasoning and make everything just a little bit more old.
You're falling apart.
Thanks. Yes, it's a long process, but I am falling apart. Ains also wants to mention that, as he mentioned in the last episode, he is going to have a Diablo 4 coins giveaway. But you need to follow Ains or the Seasoned Gaming Bitcast in order to see the details that come out this week, because they're delayed because of his travel. So if those look interesting to you, I think they look fascinating to me. Please do check out following Ains. He's at, I think, Porsche Power on Twitter and elsewise. And you can see how to win those things later on. I don't know. He didn't give me the information. So there we go. And then finally,
gave me all the information I needed to know by knowing that he's giving away coins. I didn't realize this was a thing. Truly the NFTs of the boomer era. That's the those little decorative coins.
They're physical. They're not plates of Elvis, you know. But speaking of things that aren't physical but are awesome, we do have Against the Tides pictures of us, not Mekel, but of Dan and Ains and Travis and I as Muppets, as you've always wanted.
Horrifying. I must say, Hogue, when I saw that photo of you as a Muppet, I thought, wow, he translates really well to a Muppet. And then I saw in the comments that somebody was like, oh yeah, Muppets on Sunday for all the whole cast. And I thought to myself, wow, I'm going to really look terrifying as a Muppet. And they didn't disappoint. Although I must say, Dan and Ains look way worse. They are maybe the worst Muppets I've ever seen. Ains looks like a school project gone wrong. Like, you know, he's honestly closer to a Mr. Potato Head in this photo. And Dan, I mean, is this a Muppet of a homeless person? I'm very confused by the beard hair, and I just don't.
I don't think I've ever seen that hair technique for Dan's beard in a Muppet.
Yes,
it looks very Travis, bizarre. You look like you've recently been electrified, which I find that you often look like on Sundays.
You can tell my character is like the scared one. You know, there's always like a scared or like paranoid, skittish Muppet character. I'm definitely that. Your character is probably informative and nice. And then Ains and Dan are the homeless duo that tries to rob your character. I'm guessing.
That's funny. I do like that I got actual Muppet coloration. I never quite like the Muppets as much when they go for the human characterization. So I'm glad I'm a giant yellow lemon person.
And I know that, you know, all Muppets or most of them have very large noses, but I like what they did with mine. They made mine horrifying. which is good. I'm happy for it. Truly
Well,
horrifying.
thank you everybody for that, and thank you Tide for the pics of us as Muppets. I think they are fantastic. I'm surprised at how well the AI was able to capture my Muppet form. I've never really thought of myself as a Muppet, so you're continuing to do awesome work, Tide, and thank you for that. So, that all being said, let's see if we have any food-related comments in our chat to make sure that we get on a good conversation starter before we talk about video games at all.
What is a food conversation if Dan isn't here, really?
So here's Nisa Hauer. Thank you so much for being a member. I know Ains is not here, but let's wish him well. Absolutely. He deserves it. And we hope Ains is having a safe trip and we'll be back before you know it. And then, of course, we have Googleman. Thank you so much for the super chat, Googleman. Sweet Liberty. Video games are at an inflection point for democracy. There's too many bugs and also bots. Sour Patch Kids are better than Warheads. So I'm pretty sure that Googleman is both referencing some of the discourse on the internet as well as some hell diving. So thank you for that, Googleman. Now, Sour Patch Kids are in fact better than Warheads. I'm not sure that's a food discussion as much as it's a candy discussion, but I think that's just a clear case of truth, right? You don't see Warheads in the movie theater anymore.
That's true. Although I would say Warheads and Sour Patch Kids aren't really competing in the same market, to be honest. I mean, I know they're both selling candy, but I've never thought of Warheads as a replacement for Sour Patch Kids, to be honest. Sometimes you want to be kicked in the face by sour, and you do not go for Sour Patch Kids. Do not go.
Can we get that
Sour
on the
Patch
bag?
Kids.
Can we get kicked in the face by sour on the bag?
Yeah, yeah. You don't. Sour Patch Kids is not intentionally offensive in its sourness, but sometimes
I think I just had a bag of Sour Patch Kids the other day that said "not so sour" on it. So hey,
there you go.
They're trying to be
it's in the marketing.
Your relaxed sour friend.
Yeah.
You want a little sour? Want a little head of sour?
It's got the word "kids" in it. Yeah, it's for the kids, or they are
not
kids.
The Warheads. No,
the key.
I do prefer Sour Patch
all
Kids,
in the
although I kind of like the little watermelons the best, more than the kid form. So
yeah.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Because I think
I just like they just hold together a little bit better.
Yeah.
My problem with the Sour Patch Kids is most of the kids are like citrusy flavors I would like to skip over. You know what I mean? The oranges, the yellows. We don't need these in our Sour Patch bags. They're too much of that.
I'm the kind of guy that eats the Skittles or the Sour Patch Kids a number at a time. I don't think I've ever framed out what one of them tastes like.
Whoa, really? You just go in and you grab a handful. That's crazy.
Okay, I need to know, how are you eating your multicolored fruit-based candies?
One at a time.
Yeah. One at a time.
Yeah.
All right.
You're picking and choosing.
I like to imagine Travis is putting them in little lines, like the back of a Lego booklet.
Yeah. I give them all backstories and names and act out a scene with them. And then when it's their time, I eat them. And you got to work that into the story somehow. Either I'm like a giant monster and they're all gone, or, one of them will get cervical cancer and then I've got to eat them for the story, kind of a
I really didn't realize my Skittles had a cervix. So thank you.
They're kids. They're Sour Patch Kids. They're all children. Okay.
I understand.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Googleman. Always an interesting time here on the Bitcast. We do have more. Hello, Bitcasters. This is Tao Zochi. Thank you so much for the super chat. So next week is Sacred 300. I do know that, which I will be attending, and thought, when will Bitcast do a live show? Maybe in a major food city. Foodcast Live. Well, when we start making Colin Moriarty money, we'll have a live show. But until then, and I'm committing Ains to this, right? If you ever hit that last 10 media money, then we can do a live show and things like that. But I do know they're having Sacred 300. You might see someone you recognize there. But outside of that, I couldn't say where we would go. What would be a major food city? Where would we go? Nashville?
It is kind of in the middle. I have no problem with Nashville. It's one of the seceding states, but it's they seceded last and then they rejoined the Union first. So, I'll take it.
Okay, so I'm gonna evidence my lack of historical understanding. Was California even a state during the Civil War? I don't even know.
Yes. Yeah, it was. Mhm.
All right. Thank you for that, Travis. I assume you're well versed in your home's history.
I am. And also
Everyone in
just history
California.
in general. I'm a bit of
Nobody's
a
a
nut.
transplant in California. They're homegrown Californians.
That's kind of true. We got a lot of transplants. A lot of people move here, but not
That was
where I
the joke.
live. Yeah.
Not where you live, Northern California.
Yeah, Northern California, I think, is less of that.
Well, if you want to call no secessionist states, Travis, you can. I'm just not sure what food city that would leave.
I'm not sure either. Not in the middle. That's a tough one. It's a tough one.
I'm sure Ains and Dan's would be arguing for Kansas City barbecue.
I'm sure they would, as is their right and their nature. I'll go anywhere though. I'm going to be traveling near you guys pretty soon, or near you specifically.
Be traveling near us pretty soon. We'll be able to feel the air pressure change as Travis comes by.
Yeah,
right.
They tend to announce my arrival in the winds. Mm-hmm.
And Taozochi, thank you again for another super chat. Food question is chili soup. Another chart, perhaps, Travis. But really, favorite pizza toppings, easy one this week.
Okay.
Is chili soup. Depends on how it was made, honestly. You can have really runny chili. You can have the stewish chili.
Yeah.
To me, at least.
I think it depends on how you define soup, and I'm not super familiar with the soup definition, but I've always thought of chili as more of a stew, personally.
Yeah. Same.
Which I don't know if a stew is a soup.
I base this distinction on the liquidity of the food stuff.
Yeah, makes sense.
So I tend to agree. Chili, like hot dog, is just chili. Why do we keep trying to put people in other boxes?
Clam chowder is soup, but it has more of a consistency of chili. It's thicker.
Yeah, I never really.
I don't want to think about clam chowder this morning.
Yeah.
Thank you, Travis.
Really? You don't like clam chowder?
No, sir.
Wow, that's a pretty hot food take. Clam chowder's goated.
Nothing from the sea for me.
Really? So you don't like sushi? You're not into fish at all? Shrimp?
No, I keep trying it every couple of years, and it's not to my taste.
Wow, that's crazy.
Don't like lobster.
I'm right there with you. I'm from an island.
I was going to say, you can't
no
be there with
way.
me.
Get out of here.
No.
You don't like any seafood either?
No, I don't like sushi. I don't like poke. I don't like clam chowder. I'm
All these foods I've learned from Infinite Wealth.
That's unhinged. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know any people like that.
I get a lot of crap from people out here. They're like, "What kind of Hawaiian are you?" I'm like, "I just don't like that." So
yeah, I mean, I guess all the Hawaiian food I've had has mostly been like pork. There's a lot of pork in Hawaiian food. I don't know. I don't know that I've had any like seafood out there, but I also haven't thought about it. Hogue has never been to Hawaii, except for in his video games.
That's right.
Persona
except
5,
for Infinite Wealth and the Crew Motorfest.
Yeah. Where you get to drive to it. I don't know.
The Crew Motorfest is probably the most accurate. It's a lot more accurate than I would say Infinite Wealth is. Infinite Wealth, I was like running around the game and I'm like, oh yeah, that looks familiar. Wait, where is that? Yeah, we don't even have that period. So
yeah, so it's not covered in people looking for a fight going, it's not a show, shithead, all the time. It's not.
Depends on where you go.
Hawaii.
If you go to the west side, Makapu'u or Makaha, you're probably running to that. So
I just assume you ride dolphins to your own islands every once in a while.
That's what I do.
Hey, you can.
How do you think I get to Hawaii when I need to go? I just go to the pier. I look for that one dolphin that's always waiting for me.
That sounds like such a sad life for that dolphin.
Yeah, I don't know. The transportation industry has really been hit hard, dolphins included. It's too bad.
But what are your favorite pizza toppings, Travis?
I don't know if I have like a favorite pizza topping. I don't know. I guess I'll does cheese count as a topping? Because like I
No.
wouldn't want to eat because I wouldn't want to eat a pizza without cheese. Cheese doesn't count as a
Yes.
topping. So what if I
No.
like cheese pizza? Does that mean I don't like any toppings?
That would be true. Yes. If cheese
Yeah.
pizza is your
Okay.
favorite pizza, then you'd say I don't really
Okay.
like pizza toppings.
Yeah, I'll take pepperoni. I'm not gonna need to go fancy. It's like
You don't need
I
to
like
go
all
fancy.
I like all types of toppings, to be honest with you. I don't know that I've met one I don't like, except for I'm not a huge fan of pineapple. I get that people like
That's
it,
fighting
but
words.
look, for me it's the sweet and savory. I don't know that sweet is in cahoots with savory. I think they're opposing factions in this
I had a
taste.
wonderful pineapple barbecue chicken pizza the other day that I really, really enjoyed.
Nice.
So that had a lot of sweetness to go with the pizza, but it's a very specific kind of flavor, I think. I think pepperoni is the right choice. To me, pepperoni is the low ceiling, high floor kind of choice. Generally
Yeah.
speaking, you can order pepperoni from anywhere and it'll be okay. I think I tend to go sausage and green pepper for myself, kind of the Philly cheesesteak pizza.
Nice. I like chicken pesto. That's 2 toppings, but I like that combo a lot.
Yeah.
You like chicken pesto on your pizza?
Yeah.
It's delicious.
Chicken pesto pizza? Amazing.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah.
I believe you. I'm not sure I've had it.
Have you never had it? With a
Really?
pesto sauce instead of a marinara, and then you get some grilled chicken in there? Oh, it's great, man. It's great.
Yeah.
Sounds
You gotta try
fancy.
it.
Yeah, it does. It makes me sound Californian, doesn't it?
A little bit.
A little bit. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, for sure.
It wouldn't be served at the Cracker Barrel, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's probably true. How about you?
I personally go for I keep it simple, so sausage and pepperoni, but I like throwing on occasionally pineapples and then Roma tomatoes. So, which actually is a big thing out here. Like half the people like the Hawaiian pizza, and a lot of people hate it. It's literally a big debate.
It's a fight
out
even
here.
out there, huh?
Yeah. It
Okay.
is.
Mm-hmm. Even they can't get on board with Hawaiian pizza fully.
No, they're like, who made this?
Yeah, that's how I feel about like American cheese. American cheese, I'm like, man, that is some terrible cheese, and it's called American cheese. It's called American cheese. It's horrifying. Yeah.
Don't you feel
You
like
guys
this
don't-
happens all over the place? Like, do the French like French fries? I doubt it.
Yeah.
This is just the way food is labeled and commercialized.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you guys remember when we were mad at the French after we started the Iraq War and we started calling them freedom fries?
Oh
You guys remember
yeah,
that?
I remember
Good
that.
times.
Did
Did we ever start calling it freedom kissing, or did that not happen? No, we didn't do that rebrand.
I honestly think both were a
No.
function of the internet and people still being new to seeing news items at all. I don't know that anyone really uptook that naming convention other than being used in sitcoms and things.
Yeah.
It's too bad. I used it because I'm a patriot, Hogue, and I care about our freedom.
I figure you used it because you thought it was funny and you were a stand-up comedian.
I did. Yeah, that is true. That is really true. I did do it ironically.
Rain Man, thank you for being a member for so long. We really appreciate it. Remember to vote Hogue for Stroke Hero. Vote for Cthulhu for everything else. Cthulhu not directly on the ballot this year, either for Stroke Hero or anything more important. But you know,
I like to think Cthulhu's always somewhere on the ballot of a stroke. You know what I mean? Like you think none of those strokes happened because somebody was slowly slipping into madness and their little body couldn't take it? Come on. At least one person. Maybe even you, Hogue.
I like to think
you just mentioned you don't like seafood. Oh my God, he doesn't like seafood because he was on the sea and oh my God, it's true. You must have eaten like some sort of tainted piece of Cthulhu, like somebody.
I do love dredge.
Oh my God. And then you started, oh my God, I have so many. I'm going to write fanfic.
That's right.
Siri, remind me to write a story about just start pitch idea on my phone.
And Alex would like us to start talking about video games at some point. Here for the Rebirth chat. I get the qualms with plot momentum, the character writing moments, charm side quests, and world really prop it up. Loved it. And Alex has been in my DMs and following my Twitter as I kind of struggle with how I feel about Rebirth. We can talk about Rebirth in just a minute, Alex. I promise. Thank you for the super chat. Really appreciate it. Before we get to Rebirth, I wanted to ask Travis or Mekel if you're playing anything interesting, if you're previewing, if you're reviewing anything interesting that you can talk about that isn't under some kind of agreement or other bad document that lawyers wrote up, evil lawyers.
Evil. What am I playing? I'm playing lots of stuff. How much can I talk about? This week is GDC in San Francisco, so I'm seeing a whole bunch of games. I'm going to be downtown meeting with developers, doing some behind closed doors meetings and hanging out with people I haven't seen in a while. So it's going to be awesome. And so I have a bunch of coverage for that, but none of that is out yet, obviously. And then I'm doing this week I did the reviews for I did 3 reviews this week. I'm trying to remember what the first one is. Oh yes, Tribes 3 Rivals. I did a review for that, which is a kind of a not very well known genre of FPSZ. And if none of you guys have heard of the FPSZ genre, it is first person shooters that have a very strong Z axis tied into their game. So there's like verticality and flying up in the air and that sort of stuff. Tribes 3 was super fun. For those of us who played, I see Alex in the chat. Yes, you did play Tribes with me. You were pretty terrible, but that was the fun part, right? I got to show you how it's done. That was a really fun game. My next reviews are South Park Snow Day, which that review is finished and I think won't be live until the Monday after tomorrow. So a week after tomorrow. Which is quite a ways away. And then I'm currently reviewing a real-time strategy tower defense first-person shooter game that I also can't talk about yet, except for to say that I'm reviewing it. Oh yeah, also I can announce that I'm producing and being the editorial lead for IGN First in April. And also IGN First in May. So I'm going to be doing the next 2 months of cover stories for IGN, which will be a lot of fun. Can't talk about those games yet, but it's going to be really exciting stuff. And I'm excited to be involved in that and be traveling a lot to cover these games. So, but yeah, other than that, I mean, I'm just working my way through Infinite Wealth. I'm working my way through Apollo Justice remaster because I have to by law. Still playing Skull and Bones a bit. Helldivers 2 a little bit, and then yeah, because I did 3 reviews this week, most of my playtime has admittedly been in those 3 reviews. I have not touched Rebirth beyond the first 15 hours or so. I did the Grasslands, 100% of the Grasslands, and then
yeah, you said you beat the Grasslands 2 weeks ago, but you haven't touched it since.
Yep, I have not touched it since because I'm buried in projects I got to work on. So, did I do any previews? I think I did, but I can't remember them. So. Anyway, I'm sure Alex will tell me what I covered. He always knows more than I do. He's always like, "Yeah, you did this." I'm like, "Thanks, man. You're my day planner as a person. Thanks." So yeah, really busy.
I just like
super excited.
I like the notion that you're previewing things and just like rattling them off and firing over to IGN and then forgetting that you played the game entirely.
Correct. That is pretty much what happens. Somebody brought up that game I recommended to you, Hogue, The Altars, because it got shown at the Xbox showcase a couple weeks ago. And I was listening to the game like super interested. I was like, wow, this sounds crazy. And then I realized I previewed this game a couple months ago, and then it hit me, and I was like, oh, that game. Dude, I let you talk about it for
not
10
only
minutes
did you preview
before
it,
I remember.
You messaged me separately to say this is one you should watch out for, Hogue.
That's right. Yeah, and then I apparently forgot that I played it for 10 minutes and then was like, oh, that one. Yeah, I played that 6 months ago. So this is my life.
That probably happens when you play 10,000 games or whatever it is that you play.
True. Yeah.
How about you, Mekel?
Right now, I'm working on reviews for Unicorn, Overlord, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
So you picked some small ones.
Kind of Rise of. Well, I can't say that one yet, but there's a game coming out called Rise, and y'all know the rest of that. I'm working on a review for that, as well as another game that's dropping this month, and also doing a review for what's this other one? No, I just did Berserk Boy. But yeah. Dragon's Dogma 2, I'm working on that one too. So I am slammed because I'm doing in both written and video format. So is yeah, it's taking all my time.
It sounds like it. Yeah, as a not professional or any kind of video game reviewer, I'm always amazed by how much y'all play and get into all of these games. When for me to talk about what I'm playing, it's essentially Rebirth and Skull and Bones. And those Skull and Bones you could play for 100 hours and not get anywhere depending on what you're doing in there. And Rebirth, the reason Alex wants to talk to me is because I said on Twitter yesterday that I have tremendously complicated feelings about Rebirth. I love Final Fantasy. I think folks that watch the Bitcast know that. I love Final Fantasy VII. I have a long history with the 90s era of Final Fantasy games. I thought Remake was great, although it was a bit of false advertising as to whether or not it was a remake of Final Fantasy VII. And Rebirth is large. It is the model of Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth, a huge open world or semi-open world areas, and then lots of mini games that have you grow your party and do various things for like party interactions, character interactions. But whereas Infinite Wealth has major plot developments pretty much all the time, like you might get to the end of a chapter and sit back and get 20 minutes of plot developments in a cutscene, which some people don't like. But I tend to like for forward momentum in why I'm doing what I'm doing on my Segway or with my Pokemon League or what have you. Rebirth, to me, its real problem is that they've taken this 10-hour chunk in the middle of Final Fantasy VII, they've turned it into 100+ hours, and that 10-hour chunk doesn't have a lot of things happen in it in the original game. So I thought to myself, okay, they obviously have to identify that and know that they have to add a bunch of things into making it a story, a plot, something that you're invested in doing. And honestly, now I think I'm like 70 or 80 hours in. I don't think they did that. I think they made a bright, big world that is interesting to explore and fun to check out, and with almost no driving impetus behind why you're moving around the world other than to see the sights. And I think that's fine in the middle of another game, in the middle of a story. It's less fine as its own game. And so I have tremendously conflicted feelings about it because I am enjoying it when I sit down to play it for the most part. But overall, I don't have a lot of reason to be playing it. There isn't a lot driving me forward. And so that's confusing for me.
Yeah, it definitely, from what I played, it feels kind of like a frivolous game that didn't need to be its own thing. It kind of reminds me of when they turned the Hobbit book into a trilogy of movies, and you were like, how the heck are they going to make that happen? And then it turns out they added a whole bunch of padding and stuff that didn't need to be there. And so that kind of reminds me of that. Granted, though, because I only played the beginning, frivolous padding kind of felt right for the beginning of the game. It kind of feels like what should be at the beginning. It's like, oh, you're just getting introduced, and it's sort of fun.
I don't really have a
stupid
problem with the
stuff, but
grasslands. It's that
yeah.
you keep going to the next area and the next area and the next area, and it really doesn't progress past follow the robed men, which is
So
that
I
portion of the
played the
game, right?
game basically. I played the game like by playing Grasslands. It's just repeats that kind of loop over and over again. Is what you're saying?
You're following the robed men, and there's a boss occasionally, which is fine. Like that's that portion of the game because that's what place it takes in Final Fantasy VII Original. But I think you had to change more if you're going to have this 100-hour blowout, and I don't think they did. So in my head, I wind up comparing it directly to Infinite Wealth because it's that same kind of loop. It's a turn-based, growth-based RPG with a lot of mini games that are fueling your growth. And I like the world more. I'm more interested in exploring planet than Hawaii. Present company, I'm sorry. But I think the game works better in Infinite Wealth because it has a lot more reason for you to be doing what you're doing. And it isn't obviously relying on the legacy of the past because you've never met these people before. So it has to establish everything. I just think Rebirth is maybe going to wind up being a miss for me. And that's weird to say because everything in it is obviously hugely resourced. It's graphically impressive. It's got all these various bells and whistles, 4,000 mini games seemingly, and I'm just not sure it's connecting the way I wanted it to connect.
I have a controversial take.
You can have a controversial take. That's what we love here.
I personally I've been with the Final Fantasy, I guess the Final Fantasy 7 sub series. I've been with it since the original in 97. I played almost all the compilations, either in official or unofficial means. And to me personally, I enjoy Final Fantasy 16 more than I'm enjoying Rebirth. Like Rebirth is great. Like,
I'll
don't
back
get me
you up.
wrong, but it's like it's the same kind of issue I had with the remake, but to a lesser extent. It's just like you said, it's a very small portion of disc one blown out to $100. And it's just, I know they're going, deviations and the branding of like, oh, remake, and it's like that's the subtitle. I will fight anyone all day. It's like, no, you still need to know the compilation going into remake and rebirth, regardless of
It's a
what Square
sequel.
Enix says. It's a sequel. It's literally what it is. And people still think, oh, you don't need to play the original. You don't need to play the compilation. Yes, you do, because you're not going to understand a lot of the sub context that's going on, But I enjoy.
I don't know that they care
16.
about that in the game. Like, I get that a lot of the gobbledygook that happens at the very beginning of Rebirth and also in the recap video won't make sense to you if you didn't play the original Final Fantasy and know the context of what's happening in the alternate timeline situation.
Yeah, they're just skipping ahead. Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
think based on the content of the game, at least what I played in Grasslands, it's sort of like they don't really care if you know that. They're kind of just like,
Yeah.
just have fun. It's a party, just hang out and do mini games and stuff. So
Have fun. It's a
Um,
party is the Rebirth mantra.
yeah,
But
that's kind of what I'm saying. It is sort of like a popcorn feel. I don't know that they're super committed to everyone getting on board with the meta timeline story that's happening kind of for the people who play it or for the people who didn't play the original. Because I do another podcast and one of the people on it, Bontis, he is playing Final Fantasy 7 remake and rebirth as his first entry into Final Fantasy 7. He never played the original, and he's like, oh yeah, no, it's great, it's not a sequel at all, you can totally play it without understanding stuff. So he seems to be blissfully ignorant and just enjoying it and not thinking of it as a sequel. And so I think there is room for people like that, but I think to your point, it's just not true that it isn't a sequel. It is for sure a sequel to the game, based on everything that we see in that game. So
well, it's not a remake of the original, certainly.
Yeah,
honestly,
sure.
they probably don't deviate enough in Rebirth based on what they've decided to cover in this game, right? Like they had a choice to go and make 95% of the same game in terms of plot developments or not. The entire ending of remake says we can do what we want. That's part of its shtick. That's its trick at the end. And then they just don't, right? And I said when remake came out and people were like, oh, this opens everything up. I'm like, it can't open things up that much because it can't have the Final Fantasy VII name if it doesn't track most of the stuff.
Yeah.
And that's really what Rebirth wound up being, is tracking most of the stuff with a lost type side plot line happening so that they can say that they're still doing new stuff. And that's fine. I enjoy every time I sit down with Rebirth. I really do. And I know Alex loves it. I just, in my RPGs, need more story, need more plot, need more reason for being. And
meat on
I
the
will
bone.
agree entirely that Final Fantasy 16, I had more fun in playing as a story, even though I think Remake's battle system and use of party is way better than 16.
Yeah.
Way better.
So I have a question for you guys regarding Final Fantasy as a series now, with the way the Square Enix is putting so much behind the 7 sub-series, more so than anything else. Do you think this is going to put them in a situation where when Final Fantasy 17 eventually does get announced, that it might be hurt because it's not remake rebirth style? Because we saw a lot of that with 16, even still so.
I think I would hope that 17 will adopt this action slash turn-based system that Remake has developed, because I think it's the best that Square Enix has ever put out. And I think 16 was probably in production at the same time as Remake, and so it really didn't have even the opportunity to use that system. So I think my hope would be 17 does use that system, and if it doesn't, or is purely action like 16, that people would be disappointed. I would be. And so my hope is that they look at that and say, people like this system, and we should adopt that. One of the things Rebirth really does well, I think, is establish how Square Enix can make a semi-open world with a ton of towns and interesting things to go see that really doesn't come across in things like 15, right?
Yeah.
15's problem is everything is kind of lame. Everything is kind of empty. There's really not a lot of interesting things over the next horizon. And so that drives down your road trip feel of the game. In Rebirth, I don't like the plot. I think that they don't have enough plot going on in the game, but every single time you get to a new area, it's new. It's got its own history. It's got its own geography, and all this comes from the 90s game. And my hope would be that they now know that they can take their 90s sensibilities of all these wildly different architectures and things and say, this is an interesting place to explore, and we can adopt that into our mainline game series. So I think 17's got a chance. I don't know whether Square Enix will take it, but I don't think that the Remake Rebirth project hurts it unless they don't take some of the lessons that this series should have taught them. So yes, Rebirth, very complicated, still a game worth playing. I think probably end of the day, I'm going to say I like Infinite Wealth more. And I'm definitely going to say I like 16 more, both of which would be basically insane takes. If you told Pastrick this from 3 years ago, this is how you're going to feel about the sequel to Remake as against the action game 16 or the Yakuza entry in 2024. So that's a surprise to me, but people be open to your experiences one way or the other. You never know when a great game is going to pop out, because Unicorn Overlord is probably my favorite game that I've played in the last couple of weeks. That game is fire, as the kids say, right? It is lit. It is the bomb. It is just all that in a bag of chips.
Oh yeah,
you're old.
It's that good.
What? I'm hip. I'm hip, Travis.
Old.
It is all that in a bag of chips, and Travis is just an L for loser.
Groovy.
But seriously, Unicorn Overlord is Vanillaware's newest game. I'm playing it on my Switch. I believe it's also on the PlayStation. It might be elsewhere. I don't know.
Surprisingly.
But it is a strategy game rather than a tactics game, and is most reminiscent of Ogre Battle, if you remember that game from back in the day, right down to them naming the evil empire Zenoira instead of Zenobia. But if you like the notion of Vanillaware graphics, essentially playing battles for you while you set up the units that are going to fight using their own kind of Gambit programming system to figure out what they are going to do with just some of the awesomest graphics that you've seen in 2D, then you need to check out Unicorn Overlord, because it's got all of the liberation feels of something like a Vandal Hearts, the tactics vibes of like a Final Fantasy Tactics or something like that, with the kind of open strategy of an Ogre Battle game. And I could not speak highly enough about it. It is excellent.
Did you get the collector's edition?
I did not. I did not know that I would like it this much. I got the demo, and then I said that I think that game's going to be awesome. And then I got the digital. Yeah, I as it turns out, Vanillaware, you know, they do those polls on social media, like what developer is your favorite right now? What's the best developer to buy is usually how I see it framed. I don't want anybody to buy Vanillaware, but I think Vanillaware with 13 Sentinels and Unicorn Overlord might be my favorite operating right this second.
Yes.
Just great stuff.
Yeah.
Have you gotten a chance to play this, Travis?
I have. Maybe the first hour or whatever. So I don't know a ton about the world building yet, but I like the idea. I like this art style. I want to play more. Yeah, I picked it up on Xbox because anytime I see JRPG on Xbox, I have to support it. I have to support that happening ever.
Yes.
So,
well, you should know that Twitter is convinced that my complicated feelings about Rebirth are just because it's not on Xbox, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because I would never have bought it on Xbox. I would have bought it on the PlayStation anyway.
No, that makes sense. I mean, you are a shill. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
I'm not sure I've turned
He's
on my Xbox in 2 weeks, but I am a shill.
He's a shill. He's a PlayStation fanboy and an Xbot. Yeah, and what did I call you when the Wall Street Journal was attacking you?
The Wall Street Journal did not attack me. The Washington Post had some things
Washington
to say about
Post.
me.
Sorry, I get confused which outlet is attacking you at any given time. It was
Radicalized influencer.
radicalized influencer, but I also called you like I think it was like an alt-right Antifa member. I think is what I called you. Yeah,
It
that's
might
good.
be. Yes.
Stand by it. Stand by it.
Alt-right
He's
Antifa
both.
member is about
Yeah.
what people call me. Yes.
Yeah. I think that's accurate.
Well, the fact that you mentioned Vandal Hearts, I'm already a fan, man. You don't hear anyone talk about Vandal Hearts, so
It's true.
Yeah.
You can't call yourselves the Liberation Army and me not think Vandal Hearts.
Right?
So, yeah, Unicorn
Liberation Army.
Overlord.
I think that's the motto of San Francisco.
Yeah, you have a
Liberation
San
Army.
Francisco Liberation Army.
Yeah. That's what we call ourselves.
For whatever reason, the opening narration of I think Vandal Hearts 2, the advancing Liberation Army has always stuck with me.
Yeah. I don't know that I played Vandal Hearts.
I believe it's the indomitable will of the advancing Liberation Army. It's like that's good stuff, especially in the 90s, folks. So, yeah, Unicorn Overlord. Skull and Bones. People hate Skull and Bones, I'm told by the internet.
They do.
I don't know what game I'm playing. They're playing a different game. I'm playing a different game. Something.
I think
I enjoy every time
who,
I pop into Skull and Bones.
I think the people who hate Skull and Bones haven't played it. They're offended by the idea of it, right? Because a lot of people want that game to be ostensibly Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag Part 2. And as soon as they find out that it is a seafaring boat RPG where you play as a boat, they're like, I'm out. That sounds stupid. I don't want to be involved in it. Anybody who supports it is dumb, which is a fair way to react to it. I mean, a lot of people, to be fair, Ubisoft at one point told people that that's what the game was going to be. They also said it was going to be a 5v5 multiplayer mode. That game was in development hell for so long that I think a lot of people just didn't know what it was going to be and were surprised by what it ended up being. But everyone I know who's played it for the most part was having a good time, except for Alex, who played it completely solo, which is perplexing.
Alex
but yeah,
keeps taking strays from Travis today, man.
I know. Yeah, I'm just sorry. He's just such an easy target. But yeah, I think that game is cool. I did read that it has apparently fewer than 1 million players, which tells me it's probably not going to make it through its first year, which is unfortunate because they have a full year of live service mapped out.
We already knew that it wasn't going to make it through its first year because I love it. We already have the Hogue code here. I love Skull and Bones. Get out of all of your investments in Skull and Bones, people. It's going to last as long as Battleborn.
Head for the hills. Battleborn, Jesus.
Battleborn, man.
I love Battleborn. I love Skull and Bones. Run away.
Yeah,
but to your point, Travis, like with saying that a lot of people haven't played it. I mean, that's accurate for so many games that I'm seeing that people have commentary on. A lot of games that I've reviewed, I'll get commentary saying like, oh, this game is horrible, this and this and that, and I'm like, how far did you play? Oh, I didn't play it at all, or I played like the first hour, and I'm like, that's why.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, I'll put out reviews before the game is out and get people saying that it's bad or good or whatever, and I'm like, how would you know? But I think in some cases, you can judge some games by their trailer and in a way and know that you're not going to be a fan of them. If you don't like the idea of like a Forza Horizon type game where you play as a boat, obviously you're going to say not for me. And I think that's fine.
You play as a boat and you cannonade your opponents. I mean, that's a good Forza Horizon edition. Give me cannons. You heard it here first, Playground.
Add cannons to Forza. But yeah, I think that is fair. It's more just like, people's personal preferences, and a lot of people aren't willing to give certain games a chance, which is fine. It's their dollars, their time. So I don't take it personally, but I do wish more people would play it because I've put a lot of time into Skull and Bones. I think I'm in like the top 100 players for season 1.
You gotta be. You told me your stats, and I'm nowhere near that. And I've played it.
Yeah, I own every item you can buy with pieces of 8 or sovereigns in the game, and I'm pretty far along there. So, and I got there by basically just playing like an hour a day, more or less. I kind of just like wake up and do like some dailies and log off, and somehow that's working. So it's pretty cool. I enjoy it though.
My biggest issue with Skull and Bones is I think you do get sticky in certain like levels of ship, where it's just hard to progress past like level 7 you mostly have to take on 9s and 10s. And as Travis would say, get friends, get good, whatever he might say in that. Sometimes I want to play in a group, sometimes I don't.
It's really just about crafting the level 5 base boat. That unlocks a lot of options. So I think really early in the game for me, I sailed like my level 3 boat over to the East Indies and went to Talak Pinjara, and then immediately crafted a level 5 boat. And so I went from level 3 to 9. I like jumped all the way over there just by being able to craft something. And then there is I feel like it's got to be easier now that season 1's going though, because you're unlocking like, well, I don't know how much you're playing, but you would be unlocking like pretty high level cannons and stuff by just doing the seasonal pass.
I took the track that just gives me sails and colors for my hull because that's what I like about Skull and Bones. But yes, I could have taken cannons.
Hogue, you that is.
I tell you what, my ship looks awesome.
Yeah, because there's like you get an armor piece, you could get the carronades. I mean, there's a lot of loot in there. I believe
I'm neon green sails. I'm rad.
I also, having not really played a ton since season 1 came out, I'm also 3 levels away from completing the season pass. I'll probably get it on accident today or tomorrow.
Nope, you're way ahead of me. You play live service games better, more efficiently than I do, more often. Whatever it is that you do, you're better at it, Travis. I yield to you on this.
Yeah, it is a fun game. I also met some people through that game, so it does have like a little bit of a community. I feel like the community is more friendly because we all know that, you know, it's not looking good for us. So like everybody's just like, oh, you're playing, like, let me be supportive. I'll give you some silver. I'll try, you know, it's like people just like randomly flag me down and like give me stuff, you know. So
I have noticed that it is not to make a pun out of it. It is the doomed ship kind of feel.
It is,
Skull and Bones, where people do come up to you and say, "You want to join my group?" and I can give you some things.
Exactly,
and it's like, that's great.
But
yeah, season 1 is cool. They've got like a mystical ghost pestilence pirate that's rolling around, and the rest of the world is still working as it was. You get these little stories and quests all over the place, and I love it. But if you don't like the idea of sailing in a storm and fighting off 6 different pirate ships and then taking the loot from their dead corpses, I don't know what to tell you. That's why we play games.
Yeah, people really don't like that. You can board the ships, but you don't get to actually play on the boarding.
It's just a bonus. It's just a bonus for one of their resources.
People are really upset about that. They're like, you can't board them. I'm like, well, you can. You just don't actually do it as a person. And they're like, yeah, that's what I meant. I'm like, all right. Well, you just don't like the game. I'm sorry. I get it. You don't like the premise.
Yeah, no, it's okay to not like the premise. I get that. I don't understand folks that just say it's bad after they give it a try and things like that, because I think, again, this comes back to meeting games where they live, not wanting them to be something different. And Travis, you say that every reviewer says what their opinions are based on what they would like the game to be, and that's fair. But I think that for the design that they made, Skull and Bones is a good game, and I enjoy playing it.
I agree. Yeah. I think if you based on the premise they were going for, this is about as good as you could hope for in terms of like, you know, what would a game where you play as a boat look like? Well, it would have economy simulation and kind of an interesting mini game there. It would have RPG mechanics where you can have different builds of your boat and stuff like that. So I think conceptually it's a good idea for what it's going for. I'm just not sure that there's a market for it, and that's pretty much evidenced by the player count, and that's sad because I enjoy it. But I feel like we've talked more about Skull and Bones on this show than probably any show.
We might be
We're the premier location for
the headquarters
talk. Yeah,
it's because I like it and you like it, and that's like the biggest nexus of people that like it on YouTube. So hey, give Skull and Bones a try, folks. Believe me, it's got stupid stuff in it that you're looking for from your MMO. I just bought a mortar that helps repair other ships because it adds
Nice.
sticky glue to those ships and seals up their hulls. Like just stupid stuff that works in a video game that doesn't make sense in real life. So it's not just old timey ships sailing around the sea. It is
By the
really,
way,
really good.
Hogue, as part of the season pass, you can unlock a schematic to build a fully healing ship. So all of its cannons are healing, and it's just a support ship. It's really cool if you can get into a group with it. Yeah, it's cool.
Okay.
Yeah. They got support ships, they got DPS ships, they've got tank ships, and then you can roll in a crew and do a boss battle together where you're all like protecting each other and playing your roles, and one person's like doing pyromancy stuff where you're, you know, shooting fire everywhere and doing DPS over time. So it's a really cool game. It's just you have to get over the fact that it's not Black Flag, and a lot of people are really having a hard time with that, obviously. So
Well, I mean, that makes me think of like how gamers like to say, you know, we want new experiences, and so when developers actually do something new and unique, then it's like, oh, we don't want that, but we're tired of what we've been getting. It's like it's a
I mean,
conundrum.
you could say a lot about Skull and Bones, but you can't say it's not unique. It is
Exactly.
wholly unique in the market right now. There's not anything really like it. And especially in live service, that's another complaint is like all the live services that succeed are like battle royales, or they follow a very specific formula. And you're like, oh, well, what would a different type of live service look like that was a different type of game? And now we've got Diablo 4 to answer the what would a live service ARPG look like. And now we've got an answer for boat RPG game in Skull and Bones. So I think it's cool. It's just
What
weird.
would that look like? It would
What would that look
like
like?
that. It wouldn't look like Sea of Thieves. So I do get this a lot. Sea of Thieves,
love Sea of
wildly
Thieves.
different game. I know it's pirates and boats and treasure, but wildly different game. If you ever play board games or card games or any other video game on Earth, you know that you can take the same idea or premise and have an entirely different experience built out of it. And Skull and Bones is very different from Sea of Thieves.
Yeah, somebody in Ains's chat also asked, how does Skull and Bones compare to Sea of Thieves? It doesn't really. I mean, I think Sea of Thieves is probably a better game, but it also is not really a fair fight because Sea of Thieves has been developed for 7+ years and has a huge community and is now getting launched in PlayStation to have crossplay. And I mean, that's like, it's comparing, a game that's been established and thriving for years to one that probably isn't going to be here next year.
Hey, if I
So
get a
it's
couple
tough.
years out of Skull and Bones, I will be thrilled. And I think
Me
that there's
too.
an off chance of it because Ubisoft does stick with games that look like early failures longer than other companies.
In all jokes aside, I do think we'll get the first full year because they've already announced it, and I believe they may have even sold it to people. I think some people have paid for the content past the first quarter, but I've seen the first year of seasonal content in a preview last year or earlier this year. So I know that they've built out a lot of that, and I think they'll probably see it to fruition. And I think that they have an opportunity in that year to find an audience before they have to, pull the plug on it.
Well, and as a primarily PvE versus game, a PvE game,
Correct.
It doesn't need that enormous audience to survive.
Correct. And it has crossplay, which is a godsend to live service games that actually want to stay alive long term because they don't have to worry about dividing the player base. So we'll see. I think it has a chance. It's a good game. 7 out of 10 IGN.
I enjoy it. I don't really have a problem with that review. It does click with me very well.
Me too. I got harmed from that review. They thought Ubisoft bought a 7 out of 10. Your marketing team, you don't have enough money for an 8, so you got to settle for a 7. You got to have the,
it
that's
is funny.
going on the box
crack
art.
a joke about you saying you had meetings to go to at GDC. I was like, see, this
That's
is where they happen, folks.
That's where it's happening. I'm like, I drive a hard bargain. You want an 8, you're gonna have to. What's funny about that is simultaneously game reviewers are portrayed as like Trader Joe's communists, of like they're the poorest people and they just want to like destroy the established order, but also we're apparently getting obscene amounts of dollars to give scores for different games to publishers. So I'm either the richest or the poorest person depending on who's tweeting at me. And I like to think both are true.
You're getting obscene dollars. You're just bad at investment or otherwise making sure that
I see
you and not your bosses.
I see. Got it. So I'm like a hatchet man for the New World Order, basically. Or I guess
So Travis, I got a question. Where the tech's at? Because I keep getting told I'm being paid. I don't know where the check's at. I got kids, people. Got to put food on the table.
I believe we get paid in gamer chairs, from my
Okay.
understanding. That's how it works. We just a fully chair
You do have
market.
some solicitations for gamer chairs. That's true.
Yeah. Whatever the opposite of being liquid is, I'm 100%. I'm just all chairs. All my money
that's
is
illiquid. Illiquid is the opposite of liquid.
That's what I would have guessed. A word that sounds made up. Illiquid for sure.
See, I'm not getting paid in gamer chairs because none of the gaming chair companies will send anything to Hawaii without you paying like half of what the chair costs just to get here.
Yeah,
I have accepted no gamer chairs. See?
It's a leather office chair, sir. I don't know what to tell you.
I believe this is from the Meyer.
What's the Meyer?
The Meyer?
Furniture store?
Michigander talking. Meyer is one of our local, not super high-end grocery / stuff you need stores.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay. It's a sort of do it all in one type of place. Nice.
Yeah, see, we got folks that know Michigan here. Meyer.
Oh, that is not how I would have thought it was spelled. That's some.
I know, right?
That's like some Swedish Meyer.
I believe it's
are you sure it's pronounced Meyer, or are Michiganders just being offensive to other cultures? You know, we could go either way on this one.
I didn't mean it was only in Michigan. I just meant it wasn't in San Francisco.
Definitely not. Definitely not
here.
Not
Hawaii, I'll tell you that.
Think Kmart. Okay, I do know what Kmart is. We also don't have those here, but I know what they are. I miss them, SM.
See?
So much. Yeah.
I appreciate it, everybody. Thank you for representing the Midwest. And yes, it did start in Michigan, I believe. The Meyer family is one of our congressional representatives.
Good old Meyers. What's the next topic, Hogue?
Oh, we're just gonna keep talking about Meyer the whole time.
Okay, that's the whole show now. It is a food cast. I love that I can see you reading comments and forgetting that you're the host now. You're not allowed to read comments, so you got to keep it rolling.
Hey, you know what? This is what I do in my corner. Okay, so yes, Ains does say that the PS5 Pro specs have leaked. I think that there have been discussion about a PS5 Pro. I'm not sure whether the specifications that have leaked are fully reliable or not. Ains says he can't confirm the specs. Some sites have. I'm going to stick with not fully reliable, but he can confirm. Ains can, not Hogue. To be clear, regulators. Ains can confirm that the PS5 Pro is real and slated for launch this year. He gave me no other background, so unfortunately, we just have to take Ains from afar.
Yeah,
at his word.
Source, trust me, has never been more relevant.
Sourced this Google Docs file from Ains.
Yeah. I mean, look, the PlayStation 5 Pro is the worst kept secret, except for maybe the Switch successor or whatever the heck. These are not very well kept secrets. It's happening. The specs are probably correct. There's always a possibility for last minute changes. But yeah, I think this is pretty much a sure thing. That would be
he
very
wants to know if you all will buy it, and will the devs use it, and also a price prediction, apparently.
I think devs will use it because due to the fact that a lot of games are developed on PC, it's a lot easier to upscale them. Will they use that to its full potential? Probably not. Will I buy one? I don't know, man. I own 2 PS5s, and I don't need a third one. But knowing me, I'll probably get some PS5 game for review, and it'll have, I'll the first thing I'll think of is the comment saying, "Wow, this game looks terrible." The reviewer should kill himself, and I'll be like, "All right, I should probably buy the new PS5 to make sure it looks as good as it can." So it's a work expense.
I was gonna say, I think maybe you have to, right?
I kind of have to, yeah, kind of. For the frame rate fascists, as Alex points out, for the frame rate fascists.
We're gonna use that from now on. I definitely believe that this is gonna happen. I mean, it's mid-generation refreshes it's nothing new. I mean, to keep with parity with PC once the games are developed first there and to release it elsewhere, I think it will happen. Am I gonna buy it? Probably not, because PlayStation will probably send one to me. I'm Hawaii's only PlayStation partner, so that's a given. But as far as like, will devs fully utilize it? I mean, I don't think they fully utilize the PS4 Pro. I don't think they're fully utilizing everything in PS5 right now. So no, I don't think so.
I'm going to say what I like about the mid-gen refreshes and even the generational shifts, which is I like when, because they have to work on the current system and the last system, you get the extra frame rate, you get a smoother performance at that higher level. I don't like when they spend it all on graphics, like reflections and sparks and whatnot to give you back to 30 frames per second or even chunkier. So I like that transition phase, but I said this, I think, when we talked about it last year. I do not feel good about investing in this PlayStation 5 generation. I don't feel like Sony has delivered on the money that I've already spent investing in their console. And so I am reluctant to buy a mid-gen refresh when I really don't think they've delivered yet in this one. I mean, Naughty Dog is just making remakes. I feel like Insomniac, I don't like Spider-Man 2. I talked about that on my channel this week. We can leave that aside, but Insomniac really hasn't made much of anything. I don't think Ratchet and Clank was that good for the PlayStation 5.
Wait, really?
So, no, I thought it was fine.
Rift Apart?
Like, it is at 7 out of 10. Yeah.
Oh, wow. I like that game.
But
I mean, I would have gave it an 8. It was that
good. I think at least
know?
an 8. I would say Rift Apart is the best PS5 game, actually.
Yeah.
I think Returnal is probably the best PS5 game.
That's true.
But
That's close. I just hate that. I hate that. I'm still frustrated about that. The right trigger doing two things. That really broke me, Hogue. Really broke me.
I thought it broke you that it was that the middle one is the more effective primary, and then you wind up pushing it all the way in.
Yes. Yeah. I think there was also one with the left trigger. The whole like control how hard you press a button while you're in a tense situation really messes me up. So that was the main. That's why I keep hoping they'll port it to PC so I can not play it on the DualShock, so I can just have normal controls.
So I'd be reluctant to invest, but again, I'm an Xbox shill, right? So who can trust me? What do you think this thing will cost? Given that the PlayStation 5 is still pretty much full price.
$700.
7 is the number I had in my head. $699.
Yeah.
Oh, Returnal is on PC. When did that happen?
I think it was one of their first.
Last year, I believe.
Wow.
If
Look
not,
at me. I was on the PlayStation podcast with Brian Altano and Max Scoville, and no one corrected me when I said I wanted Returnal on PC. I guess that's why it's the PlayStation podcast. They only know about PlayStation stuff. I'm gonna buy that. That sounds great. I'm gonna buy that on PC.
All right. There you go, Sony. We sold you a copy.
That's right. And 30% to Steam or whatever they charge.
Still,
do you guys also feel like this console generation could have waited to either this year or maybe next to drop?
This whole generation?
Okay, so the added context is I'm agreeing with Hogue that they haven't really given you a reason to really want to invest in it. But especially with games being PS5, PS4, Xbox One, Yeah.
So I view that as a virtue. I think that if I had my way with the games industry, I could just have them operate however I wanted. The way I would do it is I would make it more like cell phones, where you don't have to upgrade your cell phone every year. They're still all going to run the same apps. It's just if you get the new cell phone, it'll run better. And then eventually, after 5 or 6 years, your cell phone's probably going to just need to be upgraded because it's too far behind. It doesn't do the things well enough for you to do it. And I think Xbox has that philosophy. They've been very clear that they want games to work on the Series S and the Series X. They supported backwards or the compatibility with the Xbox One machine for a long time. But I actually think that it doesn't. There are people who are going to expect that every 4 or 5 years their box gets stronger, and are especially the frame rate fascists on console are going to get more kind of whiny about the FPS or the whatever the new pixel count standard is and that sort of thing. And I think for those people, the super fans who are going to buy a new console every year you release one, that's good. But I also think it's good for consumers if old consoles don't get completely left behind. So I kind of like that practice. I don't think you need to choose between not creating a new console and like abandoning the previous install base. I think in a perfect world, console refreshes are released more regularly, but only rarely do they ever abandon the previous install base. And I think this is the closest we've ever gotten to that model. And so I'm kind of happy with it. I'm happy to see that more people can play games on boxes that work for them. Travis describing PC gaming for consoles. Pretty much, except for PC gaming is incredibly complicated and opaque in terms of how that goes. And, Xbox or PlayStation, you could put a number at the end of it. So it's very clear where you are in the chronology.
And so they start calling it the new PlayStation, like Apple. You just
correct,
kill everybody in the retail location.
They do something like that would probably be bad, but I think that's really the best model for consumers. PC gaming, it's the best model for consumers if you're a tinkerer and you're willing to put all the time into it and you don't mind everything going wrong every single time you turn on your PC. But I think I think it could be good for consumers if we have console refreshes regularly, but none of them are mandatory, or at least not mandatory until you've skipped a few. I don't think that's the worst model in the world.
At least it's not like the earlier console generations with like every 3 to 4 years. Oh, here's a new console. We're
Correct.
really not supporting the previous one. So,
yeah, it also protects game preservation a lot more because it's a lot easier to do backwards compatibility if the expectation in the market is that the past couple consoles are still going to be able to play the same games. It makes that transition a lot easier, which that's my big fear is that, my digital library one day isn't going to matter, or that, because I saw that happen with my physical media. I had all these games. I had like hundreds of boxed games on a shelf. They were just taking up space, and actually just put them all in boxes and shipped them to a friend for a charitable undertaking because there just wasn't any easy way to play them, and they were just collecting dust on the shelves. So I just got rid of all of them. And having to do that with my digital library would be horrible. I don't think that's going to happen, which is why one of the many reasons I'm a big fan of digital media. I just think it's probably better for consumers this way, even if us on the front lines of gaming, it's not as exciting. You don't get to see the very clear, massive jumps and all that. But to me, that's a small price to pay for regular people getting to not left behind and having a good market for consumers.
I'm all for it, Travis, but it does mean that when you ask me the question of whether I'm excited about it or I'm going to buy it, the answer is maybe not.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm not excited about the next set of cell phones, but that's because I upgraded last year. I'll wait 3 years and then maybe the difference will be big enough. And if we can get there in gaming, I'll be super stoked because I would like to be able to have people skip. And I think some people have. I see some people that say they don't have PS5s yet and that the PS4 runs games fine. And I treat that as a positive. Some people look at it as like, oh, well, I don't have a reason to buy a PS5. And I'm like, that's fine. Like, what are you, a Sony stockholder? Who cares? As long as you're able to play the games that you want to play and you're having a good time, I don't care which console you're playing it on. So I just think people have a lot of investment. People who watch YouTube shows about the games industry or host YouTube shows about the game industry care about that stuff. But I think average consumers, they're probably thinking of it as, I haven't upgraded to a PS5 and that's cool. That's a good thing. So
it's really one of those things where like when we step outside of essentially our echo chambers and talk to everyday consumers, they're not looking at games or tech or entertainment in the same way that those of us who are covering it or in it are. So
Yep. Yeah, and I know this because I have a lot of really, really casual friends. Like I'm talking like they buy 2 or 3 games a year, or they just play Overwatch or whatever. You know, they just play the Overwatch, and Overwatch 2 comes out, and they go, "What is that? Is it a sequel? I'm confused." Those people, I hang out with them, and talking to the normies, like their views are so different, and they kind of are a great like body check for like
Yeah.
you know my industry bubble. And so I love hanging out with people like that because they're who I write for. I mean, that's the IGN
Yeah.
audience, are those people. So I think it's good to stay connected to them.
Speaking of IGN and you, Travis, we do have a super chat from Dean Sala. Thank you for the super chat. As a Nigerian native, can IGN stop being offended for us regarding the RE5 is racist nonsense? Travis, do you have anything to say about this? I think opinion editorial that IGN put out about
Yes.
Resident Evil 5 not being able to be updated.
Yeah, so IGN isn't offended for you. A specific writer maybe is offended for you. That was an editorial somebody wrote. It's not an editorial I agree with particularly, and I think that's okay. Sometimes when outlets create editorials, it's about somebody sharing their perspective and trying to persuade you of it. And I think sometimes you don't have to be persuaded, or you can just disagree. And sometimes people on the same team will write 2 competing editorials with 2 different perspectives, which I also think is really cool. So I think sometimes people look at IGN and they expect, you only are allowed to do news. If it's not news, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear opinions from you. And that's just not how media outlets work. We do news, we do opinions, we do reviews, which are also a form of opinions. And you kind of just have to have a little bit of media literacy on like what you're reading, and if it's hard news or being treated as fact, or if it's just somebody trying to convince you of their perspective. In this case, it's an editorial. I don't have a problem with people having opinions and writing them, but I do disagree with that one. I think it's kind of silly. So I'm with
Certainly,
you, man.
it is the case that any given outlet can have multiple voices that don't agree with each other. You know that from me and Travis.
True. Yeah, we often don't agree.
But I do think, and I've said this before, that IGN needs to be a little bit more cognizant of the world in which it sends opinion editorials out into. And certainly, even though I'm happy that Ains doesn't have it as a subject matter for us today, the world of gaming commentary this week in particular is a tricky one for IGN to put out an op-ed like this right now.
Oh yeah.
So that's where I will stop on that. I don't think it's all of IGN or anything like that.
I will agree with that. I think that there is I think every outlet, IGN included, could do more to educate people on kind of like what media is and does and the different roles it plays, and like labeling stuff more clearly and kind of explaining it. We do some of that, but I think we could do more. And I think media literacy is certainly not a given these days. And I think sometimes IGN is in the bubble because we are all people who studied media or journalism or something, and understand very intimately what the difference between an editorial and news is. And then other people don't understand that, and I think that we take that definitional stuff for granted. And I think we could do a lot better to explain to viewers what they're seeing and more clearly label stuff. But media has become a lot muddied, and people don't know what sources to trust, and people, they just have trust issues with what they're reading online, which is fine because that's kind of a smart way to live.
You should.
Yeah, you should. Yeah, you should.
That's not limited to IGN, by the way. I like IGN.
It's not limited to IGN. I mean, when you have like, your family members sharing RT Sputnik articles on Facebook, you can for sure question media and understand that not everything should be believed just because it was put into an article. But editorials are different. They're not claiming to be fact. They're just somebody stating their opinion, which sometimes gets muddied when you have stuff like Sweet Baby Inc. going around and people writing editorials about that are causing more problems. So
speaking of the magic words for YouTube, if you are interested, I did do a Sweet Baby Inc. video in virtual legality on my channel, which I think went rather well. I was trying to avoid fanning the flames of internet passion. But if you're interested in what that story is all about, you don't know, it is a couple hours on my channel. I think I do a good job. Travis will tell you that I undersell the problem I think that I don't want to put words in your mouth, really, Travis, but I think that's what you described to me in DMs. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I liked your video and I thought your perspective was moderate, which I'm always looking for. It's a rarity on YouTube, frankly. And honestly, your opinions are also more moderate than a lot of traditional media, but I won't go there on that one. I'm happy that IGN stayed out of the fire on this, so I'm not going to throw myself into it. But yeah, I think it's both sides are sort of overextending how bad the situation is. I think the people that are mad at Sweet Baby Inc. maybe don't understand what Sweet Baby Inc. does or their level of influence and yada yada. And then I think the media maybe overplayed their hand on like just how bad this group of anti-Sweet Baby Inc. people are, because I think there are probably people in there that are not racist or Trump supporters or whatever it was that the Kotaku article stated. So it kind of reminds me of Gamergate a lot, in that it was a seemingly benign, quote unquote controversy that maybe was amplified more than it would have been had major media companies not started to write about it and treat it as a large problem. So it's just to me, it's the least boring controversy ever created. And every time I look at it, my eyes just gloss over. But
do you mean most boring?
The most boring controversy of all time. But I thought that you covered it well, and yeah, I watched a Hogue video this week. It doesn't happen very often, guys.
There you go. Travis didn't hate it, folks. Stamp it on the box. Check it out on the channel.
That's right. So
Don Leinart, thank you for the super chat. Enjoying Rebirth. Not sure it's better than Remake. I would say it's not. Combat is better than 16. Not sure about the synergy / other changes, though. Never played any of Final Fantasy VII except Remake. Yuffie is best girl, and I pronounced her Yuffie for my entire young adulthood.
Really? Did you?
I'm told. Yeah, absolutely. None of these things were voiced back in the day, man.
True.
So yeah, I mean, you heard me talk about Rebirth. The combat system is undoubtedly better than 16's. The synergy stuff, I think they've added complexity where it doesn't work super well in Rebirth. I actually like some of the clean elegance of Remake a little bit better, but there are some cool things they do with synergies. Yuffie is the best girl. That's objectively correct, Don. Thank you. And I'm glad you're enjoying Rebirth. I think it's a fun time. Equality. Thank you for being a member for so long. You and Mrs. Hogue have been and will be my marriage goal. Good to see you doing so well. That is very nice of you to say. Thank you so much. I assume you're talking to me because I'm married to Mrs. Hogue. But you might be talking to Travis. I don't think he has a relationship with my wife, but you never know. Thank you, Equality. I appreciate it.
We're besties, so yeah. Makes sense.
Christopher Jetzer, thank you so much for the super chat and for supporting the wonderful Season Gaming Bitcast. I've been hearing that Rebirth sales in Japan are significantly down. Do you guys think this is something Square needs to worry about? I will say it's always nice to have good sales in your home country, and Japan's been an important part of the video game community for a long time. But Japan sales are not going to make or break your company in 2024. And if you're not selling on Switch, you can't expect big numbers in Japan anyway. So you can comment on whether or not that's a good idea that they were exclusive to Sony or not. But without the Switch, the PlayStation and the Xbox are not making huge waves in Japan, period.
Correct. Yeah. I think the Japan popularity is more what's the word for it? It's sort of a it's a signaler. I'm forgetting. Words are failing me right now. But it is kind of like a nice thing to have, and it kind of says something about your game if it has the really like important market of Japan. But it's not important for dollars and cents reasons. It's important for prestige reasons, or that you're catching on. But yeah, the North American market has been, probably will always be the one that really counts when you're selling your games. It's the biggest market. People have more disposable income here. It's why so many games are made for that market specifically, because that's how you make your money.
Square Enix seems to lean that direction in some of their games, which I don't love. But the other thing I would add to this is that, as far as I know, it's early days yet.
I like that.
it's early days yet on the numbers for Rebirth, and I think we only saw it from a rumor from one particular place. Square certainly hasn't said one way or the other. And the thing that I always worry about when I see numbers, especially early, is whether or not you're getting a good split from physical and digital and the other mechanisms that you can sell games into right now. And so I don't know if it's exactly as bad as some of those rumors suggest. And so I would advise waiting until we get official word from the company, period. But even if it is significantly lower than Square would hope, and Square's estimates always seem to be high. They always seem to say they're a little bit less sales than what they wanted out of anything. Then before we get those numbers, I wouldn't worry too much about Square Enix yet.
Yeah.
And then one last one from Papa Hogue. Hey, Dad, good morning. Great show and discussion. Upgrades and new product requirements are just part of the tech business model, I'm afraid, and have been since I rented my first rat video camera. I couldn't afford it. Rick? You can't just say Rick ? It's not a question, Dad.
Rick?
My first rate video camera, I'm going to assume, and not rat. And then Rick. Yes. Yes, I agree that upgrades are always a part of technology. I just don't know that I want to be as invested in platforms that don't really have a reason for me to have purchased them 4 years ago and be asked for another investment now, right? It's essentially become a kind of subscription model when you've got these mid-gen refreshes if you want to stay fully up to date on these things. And I like Travis's vision of the world. We're obviously not there yet. If we are heading that direction, this is the transitional phase. And so I don't see a need to jump on the PS5 Pro unless it's really affordably priced, but we'll see. We'll see what that price looks like. And in fact, we'll see that. Yes, Travis.
The whole point of mid generation refreshes is that you don't have to upgrade. And I think that PlayStation's perfectly happy for you to just buy a PS5 and get onto that bandwagon. And you explicitly can skip this mid generation refresh without having.
Well, I think where I feel bad about it is I feel like I would want this one because they haven't really earned the previous money from 2020, and so I feel like I shouldn't have bought the original PlayStation 5.
Right.
So that's where it starts to feel negative thoughts about the brand and the company, is that you didn't deliver then, you're going to deliver now into the future, and I need to invest in that to get into that future band that you're going to deliver in. But I don't know whether they'll do that either.
Yeah, I mean, PlayStation was the one that said we believe in generations and then proceeded to put almost all the games on PS4. So I think that is a sign more than anything else that generations are going away, and I think that's good for us. I don't think generations were ever helpful to the consumer, except for the people like us that are on the front lines. We want to see big increases in how good the consoles get, but I don't think most people are excited at the prospect of spending more money every 4 to 6 years or however long it is.
It used
One
to
of
be
these
7.
generations was like,
I like
it used
the
to be
7-year generations.
I think wasn't the 360 generation like 10 years or something close to it? It was like very long, but
yeah,
it
was
something like that. I know some of them have been short though. Like some of them have been real short. Yeah.
Well,
anyway.
the Dreamcast just didn't survive, Travis. That wasn't a short generation.
I think it counts. If they all die of dysentery at age 8, that's the end of a generation. I'm counting it.
I mean, at least it's not a Sega 32X. It's a situation.
Dad meant, do I remember that giant camera? I do remember that giant camera, Dad. I know there are character limits. I just didn't know what to do with Rick ? So I do remember the giant camera. It used to come down at Christmas with the huge camera that looked like you'd need like a counterweight on your other shoulder to hold. And now we have them on our phones. So tech is awesome. I love better living through tech, but certainly I think we can evaluate exactly how video game consoles are sold right now. And I'm not super enthused about a mid-gen refresh for a gen that just hasn't delivered for me as of yet. And that's just me, individually speaking. But also, speaking of other generational refreshes, there does appear to be a Switch 2 slated either for later this year or first quarter next year. We don't know entirely, but there are leaks all around. How do y'all feel about a second Switch?
Stoked.
Yeah.
Let's go. Yes, I wanted a Super Switch years ago.
I don't think they've needed it, frankly. The games that don't perform super well on the Switch are, for my money, mostly companies not being good at optimizing, and then you've got the Breath of the Wilds of the world that are kind of technological marvels and run really well. So I think the Switch has served Nintendo's purposes well, and if they want to upgrade, that's fine. I don't think that they need to upgrade to meet some sort of consumer expectation because they make great games, and I'm not one of those people that needs a game to hit a certain
They're
frame
tremendous
rate
developers,
level.
but I do
Yeah,
think
they're
you
great
need
developers.
consistent graphical
Yeah,
performance. And I
I
think
think
like
so.
Link's Awakening, that game still doesn't work. I
Yeah.
can barely play Link's Awakening. Or you look at like the Pokemons in the open world, and you could say, well, that's the Pokemon
That
company.
is
You can
for
put the
sure
blame,
optimization. That
you can put the
example.
blame wherever you want on that kind of stuff, but it is harder to program for the Switch than some of the other things with more power. So I
100%.
do think it's
Yeah.
time for a Super Switch. I think it was time a couple of years ago, but yes, they had the sales through then. I love my Switch. Obviously, I'm playing Unicorn Overlord on it. I was playing the Princess Peach demo on it.
Nice.
And I love Nintendo's development ethos and the games that they put out. But I will get a Switch 2 provided that it's backward compatible. And I know everybody assumes that it is, and I think that's a fair assumption, except that every time I've ever assumed anything about Nintendo, they've zigged when I thought they would zag. So
That is
until I
fair,
hear
but
them say it,
I
I'm
think
not going to assume it's
in
good.
the age where you have a digital library and cloud gaming and subscription services, I think the idea of there not being backwards compatibility is so out there and against consumer expectations that even Nintendo would not dare to defy that. And if I'm wrong, that will be a massive L for Nintendo as a company and everyone who is a customer for them. So I'll be happy to respond to that if I'm wrong, but I really, really don't think I'm going to be wrong. I would be shocked if they were that dumb.
I really don't think so either, but I do reserve the right for them to surprise me on that.
Yep, it's Nintendo. You're 100% right. That is the correct way to do it. I never make predictions about Nintendo because that is a fool's errand. 100%.
Yeah. I really think that whatever the next Switch is going to be, I think if it can have performance capability and architecture and hardware similar to, Steam Deck and the current trend of handheld gaming PCs, that would be great for Nintendo and for the consumer, because especially when you get multi-platform games, yes, optimization is a big thing, but if we can have a game that gets ported to Nintendo's next console that can run as good as it does on Steam Deck, which is at this point the least powerful handheld gaming PC, that's a win. They could run with that for years.
Oh, absolutely.
Do you guys
the form
think
factor
the
is so
Super
important.
Switch? Do you think the Super Switch will be strong enough to where they will actually gain any third-party support at all? Like, will we see games that are on the Xbox and PlayStation show up on the Switch?
I think they'll take a run at a generation old, right?
Yeah,
PlayStation
I
4.
could see that. Yeah, I can see that
Interesting.
happening.
Because there was a time, I think the Wii U had like Call of Duties and Mass Effects that were coming out at that time, come out on
And
the
people
Wii
didn't
U
buy
at
it.
the same time. Nobody
They
bought
were
them.
so old. They were the
did make
worst
a run at
version.
it.
They were old. They were full price. That never made any sense.
Sometimes they didn't work. Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah.
I played some of those games that were cross-platform and had a Wii U version, and they were pretty funny.
Yeah.
But no, I do think Nintendo is focused right. They need to focus on what they need themselves and developing their own ecosystem. That's what makes them the money in the first place. And then if third parties want to come, third parties want to come. But Nintendo isn't going to make its hay by selling you another version of Call of Duty. So they can do their best. That is the Steam Deck. The Steam Deck is selling you another version of all those games, right? It is
Correct.
PlayStation bringing something to PC. They're really bringing it to Steam Deck. And all of those things work there. Nintendo needs to stay in its own lane because that's where they're best. They're some of the best developers in the world.
Yeah, agreed.
So the last thing I am supposed to mention is that apparently Xbox is making a portable, or so leaks would suggest, much like a Steam Deck or something like that, but with an Xbox framework. Is that something that interests you?
Oh yeah, big time.
Yes.
I will definitely play that.
Yeah.
for sure.
Okay.
I like all the portable options. The PlayStation one that has to be tethered to your console is uh, uh, interesting, but not what I want. What we want is the Switch that runs PlayStation games, which is a pretty big ask unless cloud gaming steps up in a real way. Which, to be fair, I live in an area where I actually can cloud game. We've got the bandwidth and the technology and the 5G or whatever. We've got all that here, so I'm kind of in a nice position to do so. But I don't because since COVID, I work from home a lot, and why would I? But I do like the idea of it. It would be great to do that sort of thing, and I think Xbox weirdly has like the best infrastructure to support something like that. And so far, they've always outsourced it to we'll sell you the backbone to put on your phone, but you're going to be playing on your phone and yada yada. And I think that just like they need the Xbox console to sell Game Pass because they have to control a platform to sell their subscription service on, I think they're probably sick of having to support mobile phones that gatekeep them from being able to sell their products, which we have seen in high-profile legal battles.
Yes, the Tim Sweeney breaking the gates open kind of framework.
Correct, and I think this is probably another crack at that market indirectly because it's not on a phone, but they're basically saying like, hey, we want to take all this cloud advantage that we've got in this library and the subscription service and put it on something that you can hold and take with you on a bus. And I think that is a great thing, and I will almost certainly buy it if it comes out.
Yeah, it's for me, it'd be a day one. I'm not someone who's against cloud streaming devices, which I'm assuming is probably going to be that. I've got the PlayStation Portal. I like to call it the dad station. I know a lot of people like to call it the dad. Hey, I got kids. They're always watching Coco Melon or whatever their show is. So for me to be able to Bluey, yes, Bluey, Caillou, which my kids like Caillou. Don't mock me, but yeah, I don't mind having it be streaming services, like a streaming service device like that. To me would be fine because I got good internet here. It works wherever I go. Even when I do 5G hotspot with my dad station, it still works fine. So I'm perfectly fine with it. If it's native, I don't mind it. But would they want to make another platform to be like a tier below the Series S and as far as performance and power? So I don't see them wanting to do that.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah,
I think if you can't, if you don't want to make yet a third SKU that is below the Series S that then devs have to comply with, the solution is cloud, which maybe doesn't work in Hawaii as well as it does in San Francisco, and so probably a niche market. But maybe they'll have the option where, just like the PlayStation Portal, you can play tethered to your console, and that's the solution for people who don't have good enough internet to do cloud gaming. Which I think even that, I can already do that with my phone, but to have a native device that's built specifically for that, and importantly doesn't take up my phone, which is the worst part of using the cell phone thing, is that then you get a text and suddenly you have to pop out of the gaming app to go and respond to that or whatever. Not taking up my phone screen and accomplishing that, I think there is some value in that, even if it's not ideal for people who don't have the bandwidth to do full cloud gaming.
I think that's why I like the Logitech G Cloud. I know a lot of people hated that device, but I'm like, there's a place for dedicated remote play type devices like that. As much as people think there isn't, it's like it may not be for you, but there are other people that it absolutely, it works for, and that's okay. They can both coexist.
I think that there's definitely a market for it. I think what you're responding to is the fact that isn't exciting. And so consumers respond to that because it's not exciting to say, well, it's not where you thought it was going to be sci-fi wise. It's not the Nintendo Switch, a self-contained device running on native hardware that does all the stuff you want it to do. But it does some of the stuff, and it's kind of a compromise product. And I think compromised products aren't sexy. And that's why you're probably hearing people say, I don't like that device, because it's, nobody wants to buy a device and go, well, it does some of the stuff. They want all their songs, all their song library on their phone. You know what I mean? That's what consumers think of it. They don't think of it in terms of ones and zeros. They think of it as, I want my thing. I want all my things. I want my favorite things.
That's all
and that's what
consumers
they
should
should
have to
do.
think about.
Exactly. That's what they should do. Exactly.
You know, a good example of that is how PSVR 1 titles are not compatible with PSVR 2. That's such a Sony, I don't know what you're doing with that. That's a miss.
I don't know that they know what they were doing with that.
I think
Are
it
they
was
still supporting
an early industry, and I think I don't know. I really don't know why they made that mistake, because PlayStation already had the cloud infrastructure. I don't know.
It's hard to defend the VR2, certainly as we see it now.
Oh yeah, big time.
I think it's got some fun stuff on it, but it is pretty isolated in the VR landscape.
Mine hasn't come out of this for like 6 months, so yeah.
Mine did, because I reviewed the Resident Evil 4 VR game, but I think Hogue and I had a pretty big fierce debate where he was saying it was dead on arrival, and I believe my opinion at the time was it has a chance if they support it with software, which they very explicitly did not do. So I would say it's IGN also had an editorial, not news, an editorial about the PSVR 2 being more or less abandoned, or feeling like it's an abandoned platform already, which I do agree with quite a bit as somebody who invested that money in it and is pretty bummed about where it's gone.
Well, that was a wrong button hit. So hang on 1 second, folks.
He just ends the stream on
Sony. The Dean Files, thank you for the super chat. This, not the VR2, but the PlayStation 5 Pro, has the potential to be a disaster for Sony. Their console sales are already under what they wanted. Now they're expecting people to upgrade. Revenue loss?
Revenue, and then I think he's using L as the cool.
It's funny. I see Rev dot. And I think like law review. So that reads like review law.
I think Reverend
L.
L. Maybe the Dean Files.
I think I fought him in Days Gone.
Reverend L. Yeah, it's a pretty good boss battle against Reverend L.
But I don't know that we're disagreeing with you, the Dean Files. I think it would be an interesting thing to see whether there's a market for. Sony has indicated that they're not selling through as much as they wanted to, certainly as against the PlayStation 4 generation. And everybody in tech, including gaming, is reacting to the pandemic and changes in the revenue flow overall. So I don't know. These things have to get started a lot earlier than when they release to us. So it's a good question as to whether or not Sony will realize what they want out of this product. But they're obviously a company in flux. They've got a new CEO. They're running a different strategy than they were as early as the start of this generation. So we'll see. I hope for the best. I hope for the best for Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo, because I want awesome games to play. So I hope whatever they do succeeds. MZ, thank you for being a member for so long. Intriguing, certainly eye-opening video. Sweet Baby Inc. that you uploaded. Was clueless about that controversy. Your fair take shed lots of light. Thumbs up emoji. MZ, that is very nice of you to say. Thank you. I hope it does. Honestly, when I put that up, I wanted to make sure that I wasn't increasing the discourse online. And I don't know that I achieved that, because people still use even my video as a cudgel in various places, because things are crazy out there right now, folks. And I might cover it again this week, but I don't want to just become the Sweet Baby Inc. channel. Let's discuss everything that's being yelled about online. So we'll see. Cookie Mon Steve, thank you for being a member for so long. Nintendo has always been a real challenge for third-party developers. It's possible to work with them, but they make it very difficult. And that very well might be. I cannot pretend to have worked with Nintendo from the standpoint of a third-party developer. A lot of folks that have strong control over their intellectual properties, we've certainly seen Nintendo have, even in the recent past, are often very protective of that when dealing with other parties. But I think the biggest issue for third-party developers working with Nintendo is that Nintendo is off generation a little bit and doesn't care about the tech fight. And that could be a problem with whatever your particular application does, when whatever the Switch or the next Switch can't do that you utilize in the PlayStation or Xbox framework.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest problem.
I don't think it's that they have a bad third party situation. It's just that they're doing their own thing, and a lot of these people are making games that they want to work on all platforms, and that pretty much, if you want your game to run well on PlayStation, that means it probably won't run well on Switch. And so that's just the reality of the situation, is there's people picking sides. But if you look at what they've done with third party in the past, whether it's Mario Rabbids, right? That's a third party game that made by an
That's a
external
partnered
studio.
game and supported by Nintendo. I mean, I think those are the best options for Nintendo, right? Is actually
I
go
think so
help the game
too.
get made.
I think so too.
Because
But also their indie marketplace. I mean, those are all third party games, and I'd say Nintendo has one of the healthiest indie situations right now, minus their really bad shovelware problem, which is crazy.
Well, they have almost like seemingly no gatekeeping on the eShop at all, right? Like it's just a bunch of nonsense and then some
horrifying.
jewels.
Yeah.
Well, I was playing a game I got the other day called Dungeon Drafters that I was enjoying, which is essentially a mysterious dungeon indie game where you get magic spells that are in the form of cards. I know Dan would be thrilled with that. He loves card playing games. But it's an interesting combination, and I love playing the games that look like, to me, they clearly won't be graphically taxing on the Switch. Not because I take the Switch out of its dock so often, but because I like being able to move it around the house, and I like being able to take it on trips, right? So I would even, I'm a unique use case, I think, but I would even be okay with something that's just a super portable console that can move around to various spots and connect to TVs easily, because that's what I do with my Switch. I'm not playing it on a bus or anything like that, because as you said, with respect to the pandemic, I'm probably going to close my office this year because just nobody wants to see me, which is sad, but it's just the truth.
Unrelated to the pandemic, he's going to close his office
because
nobody wants
Travis,
to see him.
Just taking swipes. Can you believe
it? No. Yeah, I agree. Although I think it's crazy that you only play your Switch in docked mode. I only play it in portable mode. I mean, that's
pretty much only docked mode. It just moves to different TVs.
Yeah, that's wild. That's wild. I think we can all agree he's doing it wrong. No objections. The decision is unanimous in the chat. Thank you for that support. Great. Yeah. It's cool. Oh, also, somebody in the comments mentioned Palia. That's a great example of a game that was doing so-so on PC and then did the right thing because they're a cozy game and put it on Switch, and now is I believe at 3 million copies, 3 million players. So they just announced that this week or last week. So good on them. Good on Palia. That's a great example of a great third-party game that is more successful because the Nintendo Switch platform exists, which is cool.
Another third-party game that's been doing really great on Switch as opposed to other platforms, and that's Voice of Cards from Square Enix. That trilogy of games is so good, and I believe it's also on PC, but it's like PlayStation 4.
Yeah, I played on my PlayStation. Every time I reference the Voice of Cards, they all look at me like I'm insane. So this is just such a nice change of pace here on the Bitcast.
Those games are so good, especially if you like tabletop or D&D and such. It's so good, but I think it's sold the best on Switch, and they don't even market it much.
No, they released like the two later games. I didn't even know that they were coming out until I saw them in the store. So yeah, I love Voice of Cards. I actually really liked Dungeon Explorers as well. I like Square Enix's random experimental games, but yeah, that's exactly the kind of game that you can get on Switch and be pretty confident that the Switch isn't going to have a problem running it.
Yeah, Eleanor points out Stardew Valley, which, I mean, come on, the Switch is a Stardew Valley console. Yeah. That's why it exists. Great call out.
Stardew Valley, excellent choice.
Somebody objected. Nicola asks about the pronunciation of Palia. I have interviewed the creators of Palia to get a verification on which pronunciation is correct. And their answer was all of them, that they intentionally made it have no proper pronunciation. So some of them on their team say Palia, some say Palia, and some say Palia, which I think we can all agree is insane. But yeah, you can say it in any pronunciation you want, and they are all correct according to the developers and creators of the game. So there you go.
I'm surprised they're not just pushing Palia as the pronunciation with the association with Pal World.
They are not doing that. Yeah.
Get Pal World and Palia.
At least it's not a Hawaii situation where it's like saying Hawaii is actually incorrect. It's Hawaii, but there you go.
Hawaii, like I'm a
Hawaii.
German.
Yeah, it's Hawaii.
Welcome to Hawaii.
No.
No, you're not allowed to say.
I always tell folks that ask me to do that with like places and things like that. I understand how a different person in that area might pronounce it differently, but I always feel bad. You're going to get my Midwestern North American accent on whatever it is I'm pronouncing. Like when all of the broadcasters wanted to say like Torino for the Olympics, and we're all doing like the various Italian accents for it here in America. And I was like, no. See, that doesn't work. That doesn't work here. So I will continue to say Hawaii while understanding that it is manifestly incorrect.
I will say Hawaii and will speak in a German accent anytime I talk about Hawaii.
It's all we need. We need Hogan's Heroes.
Would you like some Hawaiian pizza? Yeah? Yeah or the nine? It's going to be me walking around. Fun fact, I do.
There's something really wrong about that.
That's a clip right there.
Oh, I was going to clip out Travis saying that Cloud is the answer and just send it straight to Square. But hey. Midnight Jerry, thank you for the season gaming membership. We always appreciate the gifts and support for the channel. I know Ains does wherever he is. And we really, really appreciate it. So thank you. Okay, we're almost done with what Ains has asked us to talk about here. And we've only had 6-7 different sojourns into various other topics. So, hey, we're doing great, folks. He did want to mention that Nintendo has, in addition to potentially leaking out the Switch 2, referenced a Super Mario Brothers sequel movie coming in the very near year of 2026. How old are we, honestly? And I believe there were some rumors that Nintendo was going to take on a little bit more of an active role in writing it, which I can only think is an improvement based on seeing the first Super Mario movie. But what do you think of this announcement?
I think television movies are boring.
Movies are boring. That's an interesting, that's a hot take, folks. The entire genre of movies is
boring across the board. No, I mean, I thought the first movie was fine. I'm sure the second movie will also be fine. I don't have a lot of excitement about movies based off of video games because I personally just prefer the video games and I don't like any celebrities, so celebrity voices don't do anything for me. So I don't know. I just whatever. It's a movie.
Oh, I stand on my hot take mountain of Jack Black is a terrible Bowser, but hey, I'm the only person on the internet who thinks this.
I like
that's
Jack
a
Black,
hot take there.
I told you. I warned you of the hot take. Don't touch. We'll get burned.
I mean, I'm okay for another movie. I enjoyed the first one, but I'm just like, what are they gonna go? Where are they gonna go with it after? I don't know. I don't know. I'm looking at this one because I was like looking at the 3 Sonic movies. Like I enjoy the first Sonic movie, which is wildly different than source material. Sonic 2 was okay. 3, I'm like, all right, a little long in a tooth. So I'm wondering,
3 out already? Did that happen that quickly?
No, that one's not out yet. I don't think. Is it?
I think that one's coming out, and then you got the Knuckles TV series spinoff of that as well.
I won't be happy until they bring back the they give me a cut with the horrifying teeth. Then I'll go and I'll watch all the Sonic movies.
You want Ugly Sonic back?
I want Ugly Sonic back. I want the ugly cut. It's like the Schneider cut, I want the ugly cut.
You mean Snyder?
Is he Snyder? I don't know. I told you I don't know celebrities, I'm just making this up.
I don't know if Zack Snyder is a celebrity, but he's not Schneider. He's Snyder.
Oh, I thought he was brother of Rob Schneider.
No.
I'm joking. I don't know.
No. No, I really like what Illumination did with the animation and how it looked as a Mario movie. But I was not impressed by the plot. So it's a kid's movie. It doesn't have to be like The Godfather or anything, but it could do more than even what it did. So if Super Mario Brothers 2 is better on that score, I will enjoy it more. But I also am, that trailer will be cool when they use 5 Nintendo Directs to show it to us in 2025. But It'll come out when it comes out. I will probably see it, and that'll be my experience with the Super Mario Brothers movie 2026. Now, before we get into the big closing that Ains has prepared for us, does anybody want to add anything that I have neglected to cover, either out of what you're playing, what you're looking forward to, what you're liking, just messages that you want to share with the audience? Anything else?
I love the messages
silence.
that you want to share. We can just do political messages out of nowhere. We need to lower the age of consent, and here's 5 reasons why. Like, am I just allowed to just go off on? Like,
okay, so remember, you're simulcasting on my channel and Ains's channel.
Look, I didn't say anything offensive, did I? It's just, I don't know.
Yes, you can advocate for any legal changes you'd like, Travis.
See.
All right, so this is why we don't let Travis have an open mic.
I just love the ambiguity of, like, you can say any message you want. It's just such a bad idea. That is the internet in a nutshell, by the way. They're like, say whatever you want, and then the first thing that happened is some guy came up and did something exactly like that. So it was a mistake. Shouldn't have had that.
This is why I'm not the regular host of the program, folks. Ains knows better than to do that.
Exactly. He's like, never leave it up to them to decide.
All right. So we do have a bunch of big new releases this week. Dragon's Dogma 2 and Rise of the Ronin, I believe, release on the same day. And even though Ains did, let's not forget Princess Peach Showtime, also coming out this week. So it's a great week for video games. And nobody's reasonably finished Rebirth and Infinite Wealth. So you still have those games to play, one or the other, at least. Because anybody that's beaten both of those games, I want to see you in my DMs because I don't believe you. All right, folks. This has been a wonderful Bitcast. We're going to close up shop just when we're supposed to here at 1 p.m. Eastern time. So we're not going to run over like some other hosts. But thank you so much for being here. We wish Dan and Ains the best on his trip. Ains will be back to normal very soon, hopefully after this week. So if you don't like the Hogue hosting program, you don't have to worry about it next time. Thank you so much to our guest, Mekel Kasanova. Please do check him out on YouTube and various other places. I believe he said he's on every social media platform, which I don't think I can even name every social media platform. So good for you. That's much better than me. Is there anything you want to pitch, anything that you've done recently, Mekel or Travis, before we let everybody out the door?
Our guest.
I will be I guess I can make this announcement. I will be interviewing John Eric Bentley, the voice of Barrett Wallace in Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth. He's a good friend of mine. We're going to be doing that. Yeah. When I was in LA last year for the 16 event, he actually came and picked me up. I had to stay with him because I was like, Square Enix said, hey, here's an invite to come to the 16 event, but you got to find your own way, get your own hotel and everything, even though they flew everyone else out there. And I didn't get to play Final Fantasy 16 at the event I'm going to, no. Anyway, yeah. So when I flew out there, John was like, hey, where you staying? I'm like, I don't have anywhere yet. I'm going to go look at a hotel. He's like, oh, brother, just stay with me. So,
in my brain space here, putting the story together, it is a man with a giant gun arm picking you up at the airport. He's there you go.
Huge. I'm 6'2", and he towers over me. That's how huge John is. But
I think Square Enix heard about your relationship with Fish, and they decided he could pay his own way.
Yeah, I know, right? I got that interview with him coming up on my podcast, Casanova Podcast, and we're also going to be, my wife and I, we have a joint show called Podcast Across Worlds. We interview a lot of anime voice actors and the directors over at Crunchyroll. So we're going to be doing a lot of that this year. We've got Richard Epcard lined up. We recently had Dorothy Fun. We are going to have Steve Bloom pretty soon, and it's going to be fun. And Christopher Judge too. That's one we've got lined up. So looking forward to that.
Now you got to put a timer on him. I saw the Game Awards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true. That's
you also have to
longer than the Call of Duty campaign. That was funny. He said that.
Yeah, it's funny that I thought it was a good joke, and then immediately after, apparently Activision was upset, and I was like, really? You get upset about that? It was a joke in an award show. Let's all cool off a little bit. Right? You're like the biggest game ever made. Let's just chill. I think you're safe.
They're just upset that Hogwarts sold more than them last year.
Got him.
Yeah.
Finally a year where it wasn't Call of Duty. I'm just
Yes,
happy
with a
anytime.
small IP like the freaking Wizarding World.
You know what?
Anyway.
I'll take wins where I can find them.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that sounds awesome. Travis, are you doing anything that interesting?
Yeah, but I can't talk about any of it. But I've got
Of
some
course not.
really, really cool stuff coming up. April, IGN first. Very excited to talk about.
That is cool. That's a big deal. Those are big things at IGN.
They are. I got to do my first one
you.
last year. Yeah, I got to do my first one last year with Remnant 2, and apparently it went well. So I'm getting to do 2 back-to-back this year, and I'm very excited about it.
It sounds hard,
cool
honestly. April
it is
May.
hard. It is hard. It's going to be crazy. I'm going to be traveling a lot and preparing months of coverage back-to-back. But
well, good luck to you there, Travis. On my end, like I said, I've got that Sweet Baby Ink video up, hopefully informative and educational. So if you're just finding yourself on Twitter and your timeline looks like it's nutso pants, because that's what it's been this last week, you can get a little bit more information from my channel, YouTube at Hogue Law. And I might cover more of that this week. I might do a different virtual legality. Unfortunately, there's a lot to talk about in all aspects of gaming, business, and law. So I might do that. I might do a media hangouts and headlines. I don't know. Might do neither, depending on how I'm feeling. But check it out on the channel. And please do, if you get the chance, come on over and vote for Hogue on the American Stroke Association Awards so we can make sure that we win that award for no particular reason other than recognition is nice. So thank you so much, guys, for voting and for keeping that up. We were down a couple hundred votes like a day ago, and I said we were down a couple hundred votes and people went in. So that's really nice of you. Thank you so much. Please do check that out. And I'm going to let Eleanor Sindra take us out. Vote Hogue for the Stroke Hero Award. Thank you for being a member for 6 months, Eleanor. Thank you, everybody, for being here and for putting up with me as host. And I'll see you on the next Bitcast or Virtual Legality, Hangouts and Headlines. Please check out everybody on this channel's content. They do good stuff, except for Travis. He doesn't, but he's still funny, so you can check his stuff out as well. Thanks, everybody, and I will see you later. As soon as I figure out what Ains has labeled his outro clip.
I thought we were off the air. I was about to start saying things out of pocket.
Yes, please don't, because I have to figure out that nothing is labeled as outro or extro, so I'll find it.
Nope, it's coming out of me. You have 5 seconds until I just start spewing just some of the most hateful words you could possibly.
Exclusive world premiere.
You did not just